Welcome back to Superbly Said Advanced English Vocabulary and Phrases.
It's great to be back for another deep dive.
Yeah, and just a really quick note before we get started today. All of today's material is actually drawn from a SpeakDuo lesson.
Right, which is an amazing resource.
It really is. So, if you're listening and you want to practice, you can go to SpeakDuo.com to meet new people from around the world. They're all practicing English on video calls to become more confident with their speaking abilities.
Because, reading these phrases is one thing, but actually saying them out loud in real conversations is how they stick.
Exactly. And that brings us to our mission today. We are skipping the basics completely. We want to equip you, the advanced English learner, with highly nuanced native-level phrasing.
The kind of language that really shows you know what you're doing.
Yeah, so let's just jump right in. We're going to start by looking at, the life cycle of a professional task. From getting ready to finally wrapping it up.
Sounds good.
So the first phrase here is fully primed. It means being thoroughly prepared and ready to carry out something. But, why not just say prepared or ready? Is it like painting a wall, where the primer is that essential base layer?
Yes, that's a perfect analogy, actually. Because just saying you're prepared implies a really passive state.
Oh, like you're just sitting there waiting.
Right, you have your notes and you're just waiting for the meeting to start. But fully primed implies this active, meticulous state of readiness.
I see.
Just like paint primer chemically bonds to the wall, being fully primed means you've done all the necessary and visible groundwork. You are locked in.
Wow. Okay, so in a workplace conversation, you might say, I am fully primed for the client pitch.
Exactly. It tells your boss you've anticipated every single question. And if you're doing an IELTS Part 2 response, you could say, I studied every evening, so I felt fully primed on test day.
That sounds so much more authoritative. But then, once you're fully primed, sometimes your boss suddenly changes the timeline.
Oh, yeah. That happens all the time.
Right. And that brings us to our second phrase, which is bring something forward, meaning to move a planned event to an earlier date or time.
And this is such an important distinction because a lot of people just default to saying reschedule.
Yeah, but reschedule's kind of vague, right?
Super vague. If you reschedule a meeting, it could mean moving it to next month. But bringing it forward always means earlier.
Okay, so you're pulling it closer to right now.
Exactly. So in a workplace context, you'd ask, can we bring the meeting forward to Monday?
That makes total sense. Or for an IELTS scenario where you're describing sudden changes, you could say, they brought the interview forward, so I had to prepare one day sooner.
Perfect. And because you adapted to that timeline crunch, let's say your performance was amazing.
Right.
That's where we use the phrase surpass someone's expectations, meaning to perform far better than anyone had anticipated.
Okay, but let me push back on that a little bit. How is that different from just meeting expectations? Doesn't meeting expectations mean you did a good job?
Well, yes, but meeting expectations is just compliance. You did exactly what you were asked to do, nothing more.
Ah, so you checked the boxes.
Right. But surpassing them means you went far better than that. It's about surprise and excellence, not just compliance.
Oh, I get it. So you're really blowing them away.
Okay.
Like if you were talking to your boss, you could say, your colleagues' designs surpassed my expectations.
Exactly. You were shocked by how good they were. And for IELTS, you could say the new cafe surpassed everyone's expectations.
Nice. And when you do that kind of excellent work, your project is finally secure. Which brings us to the phrase home and dry.
Yes, meaning having successfully completed something with no further risk.
I love how that sounds. But how does that compare to just saying something is finished?
Because finished just means the activity ended. You can finish running a marathon, but you might collapse at the end and need a doctor.
Oh, wow, right. You're finished, but you aren't safe.
Exactly. Home and dry specifically means you are completely safe from risk or failure. The danger has passed.
That is such a crucial nuance. So at work, you'd say, after fixing the final bug, the software release was home and dry.
Yes. Or for an IELTS test, we finished the report ahead of schedule, so we were home and dry by Friday.
Okay, so that's the ideal project life cycle.
Yeah.
But we don't always get that. Sometimes we're dealing with really high stakes and suspense.
We definitely are.
So let's transition to some phrases about that kind of stress. Starting with keep someone in suspense. This means to deliberately delay revealing important or exciting information. To me, that sounds like a movie director holding back a plot twist. Is it basically the same as keeping a secret?
Not at all, actually.
Wait, really? Why not?
Because when you keep a secret, your goal is to hide the information forever. But the definition of keeping someone in suspense highlights that it's a deliberate delay.
Oh, so you fully intend to tell them eventually.
Exactly. It's all about building anticipation or anxiety, not just hiding facts.
Okay, so in a corporate context, you might say management kept us in suspense about the promotions. They're just making everyone sweat.
Yeah, unfortunately. Or a more fun IELTS example. My friends kept me in suspense about the surprise party.
I love that. But sometimes the information they finally reveal contains something that really sets you off, like a trigger word.
Right. A specific word or phrase that causes a strong reaction or response.
Now, I hear people use keyword instead. Is that the same thing?
Definitely not. A keyword is something you use to search a database. It's very analytical.
Okay, so what makes a trigger word different?
A trigger word bypasses the analytical part of your brain. It causes an immediate, involuntary reaction.
Oh, like a reflex.
Yes, exactly. So in a work environment, someone might say, when my boss says deadline, that trigger word makes me stop everything.
Or for IELTS, maybe a sports coach uses a trigger word to instantly start a drill.
Right, it's immediate. But if that trigger word brings really bad news, we might see our next phrase, which is to fall to pieces.
Which means to deteriorate emotionally or physically in a noticeable way. That sounds, I don't know, a lot more dramatic than just saying someone is upset.
It's way more dramatic. If you're just upset, you might quietly sit at your desk and frown. But to fall to pieces implies a complete loss of composure.
Oh, wow.
And the key word in the definition is noticeable. Everyone around you can see that you are falling apart.
So for a work crisis, it'd be like, when his laptop crashed, he fell to pieces. Or IELTS. When my presentation file disappeared, I almost fell to pieces.
Exactly. And honestly, after surviving that kind of intense stress or suspense, the physical crash is kind of inevitable.
Right, which brings us to being out cold. Completely unconscious or deeply asleep.
Yes, and this is very different from just falling asleep.
Because it's deeper.
Much deeper. If you fall asleep, someone can gently wake you up. Out cold implies total exhaustion and complete unresponsiveness.
Like your body just shut down. So a commuter might say, I was out cold on the train until my station.
Right. Or for an IELTS answer, after a long hike, I was out cold as soon as my head hit the pillow.
Okay, so we've covered the internal emotional stuff. Let's pivot and look outwardly, like how we engage with others socially and in networking.
This is where things get really interesting.
Yeah, so our next phrase is to hook someone. To catch someone's interest or commitment, often quickly. I'm guessing this is like fishing, right? How does it differ from just attracting someone's attention?
Because attraction can be super brief. You can attract someone's attention and they look away 2 seconds later.
Right.
But the source definition of hook someone emphasizes speed and commitment. Once you hook them, it's an instant, inescapable caption of their interest.
Wow, okay, so in a workplace pitch, you'd say, the first slide hooked the investors. They couldn't look away.
Exactly. Or IELTS. A great first chapter hooked me.
And the kind of person who is amazing at doing that is what we call a big swinger, a socially active, flamboyant person who enjoys lively events and attention.
Yes.
Now, is that just another way of saying social butterfly?
It's similar, but a big swinger carries an extra layer of flamboyance. A social butterfly might just drift around having quiet chats.
But a big swinger really commands the room.
Exactly. They actively organize events and soak up the attention.
So in a networking context, you definitely notice them. Or for IELTS, my roommate was a big swinger who loved hosting dinners.
Right. And a person like that always leaves a really memorable impression, almost like our next phrase. A perfect likeness.
An exact and flawless copy or resemblance of someone.
Yes.
But if I say someone looks similar, isn't that the same thing?
Not quite. Looks similar just means they share a few traits, maybe the same nose. But perfect likeness means flawless and exact.
Oh, so it's much stronger.
Very strong. And it's usually reserved for portraits, photos, or really striking direct family resemblances.
Got it. So discussing an office photo, you might say, this portrait is a perfect likeness of the founder. Or, for IELTS, my daughter's photograph is a perfect likeness of her grandfather.
Exactly. And, looking the part or knowing a big swinger can often grant you our next phrase, an unquestioned passport.
Which is something that gives instant access or acceptance without checks or doubts. So is that just like an entry ticket?
Better than a ticket. An entry ticket just lets you in the door, but people might still question why you're there.
Oh, that makes sense.
An unquestioned passport implies a deep level of trust and immediate social proof. Nobody doubts you.
That is so useful for professional networking. Like, a strong referral acted like an unquestioned passport to the research team.
Absolutely. But once you have that access, you have to maintain those relationships.
Right, which brings us to one good turn deserves another, meaning if someone does you a favor, you should return it with a favor in kind. Is it just like a transactional quid pro quo?
Not exactly. Quid pro quo can sound very cynical and cold. This idiom is all about genuine goodwill and mutual respect.
Oh, I see. So it's more about being thankful. At work, you might say, you helped me with my report, and one good turn deserves another, so I'll help you.
Right. Or for IELTS, a neighbor watered my plants, so I looked after theirs.
Okay, awesome. Well, that brings us to the really fun part of this deep dive. It's time for a quick audio quiz to test your mastery of these nuances.
This is a great way to lock in what we just talked about.
Definitely. So I will read the question, and I'll announce the options specifically as option A, option B, and option C. While asking, I'm going to repeat the target phrase to help reinforce it.
And if you need a second to think, just pause the audio.
Right. I'll remind you to do that. And then we'll jump in with the correct answer and a quick reminder of the context. Ready?
Ready.
Okay. Question 1. Which sentence uses the idiomatic phrase, keep someone in suspense, correctly based on context?
The incredibly dangerous, damaged roller coaster carriage terrifyingly managed to keep someone in suspense completely.
The highly skilled professional bridge architect needed to securely keep someone in suspense today.
The incredibly dramatic corporate announcement was deliberately delayed to completely keep someone in suspense. Feel free to pause the audio here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct answer is option C. Keep someone in suspense. Remember, this is about deliberately delaying information to build anticipation, like management withholding news.
Great. Question 2. Select the context where the phrase home and dry is most appropriately used.
Following the complicated project presentation, the relieved corporate team was completely home and dry.
The completely exhausted, frightened stray puppy finally found somewhere comfortably safe, home and dry.
The highly efficient modern laundry machine successfully got the wet clothes home and dry. Feel free to pause the audio here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct answer is option A, home and dry. We use this when successfully completing a task with no further risk, like finishing a stressful report.
Awesome. Question 3. In which situation does someone accurately feel fully primed, figuratively?
The highly experienced professional house painter ensured the bedroom walls were perfectly fully primed.
After incredibly extensive morning rehearsals, the confident corporate speaker felt absolutely, completely fully primed.
The incredibly skilled mechanical automotive engineer carefully guaranteed the heavy engine remained fully primed. Feel free to pause the audio here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct answer is option B, fully primed. This means being thoroughly prepared and actively ready to carry something out, like getting ready for an exam or a big pitch.
Perfect. Question 4. Which response best demonstrates the advanced phrase, trigger word?
Uttering that incredibly sensitive, specific financial phrase usually acts like a terrible trigger word.
The highly experienced, aggressive shooting instructor loudly shouted an incredibly dangerous weapon trigger word.
The incredibly confused, nervous bird watcher accidentally shouted a completely ridiculous foreign trigger bird. Feel free to pause the audio here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct answer is option A, trigger word. It's a specific word that causes an immediate, strong reaction, just like a boss suddenly yelling, deadline.
Moving right along. Question 5. How would a professional accurately use the phrase out cold?
The deeply exhausted frozen mountain explorer forcefully stepped completely outdoors into the out cold.
The incredibly frustrated, angry cafeteria worker abruptly threw the spoiled, terrible food out cold.
Following the incredibly exhausting, brutal marathon race, the tired champion was completely out cold. Feel free to pause the audio here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct answer is option C, out cold. This means completely unconscious or deeply asleep due to total exhaustion.
Next up, question 6. Which scenario perfectly illustrates the ability to fall to pieces figuratively?
The incredibly fragile antique porcelain vase managed to violently and tragically fall to pieces.
Following the massive corporate failure, the highly stressed manager began to fall to pieces.
The frustrated little kindergarten child watched the complicated wooden puzzle slowly fall to pieces. Feel free to pause the audio here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct answer is option B, fall to pieces. Figuratively, this is an emotional or physical deterioration, like losing your composure when a laptop crashes.
Almost done. Question 7. Which sentence accurately utilizes the advanced phrase, a perfect likeness?
The incredibly talented historical painter brilliantly captured a perfect likeness regarding the wealthy queen.
The deeply passionate romantic photographer truly appreciated a perfect likeness concerning the beautiful sunset.
The incredibly friendly, generous kindergarten teacher demonstrated a perfect likeness toward every single student. Feel free to pause the audio here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct answer is option A, a perfect likeness. This means an exact and flawless visual copy or resemblance.
And the final one, question 8. Which of the following statements correctly uses bring something forward figuratively?
The incredibly exhausted, strong warehouse worker needed to rapidly bring something forward toward me.
Because the international executive arrived early, management absolutely must bring something forward regarding scheduling.
The highly confident, talented culinary chef proudly decided to beautifully bring something forward today. Feel free to pause the audio here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct answer is option B, bring something forward. This means moving a planned event to an earlier date or time.
Well, that officially wraps up our deep dive into today's source material.
We covered a ton of really nuanced phrases today.
We really did.
But before we go, I want to leave you with one final kind of provocative thought.
Oh, I like those. What is it?
Well, consider how using these highly specific idioms doesn't just, make you sound more fluent. It actually changes how precisely you can organize your own thoughts.
Wait, really? How so?
Think about it. When you have a dedicated phrase for completing a task with no further risk, like being home and dry, you actually start categorizing your workload differently. You stop seeing things as just done or not done.
Oh, wow, yeah, you start seeing the levels of risk.
Exactly. So the question is, how might learning advanced vocabulary actually be rewiring how you perceive the world around you?
That is a fascinating thought to end on. You are literally building the lens you see the world through. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Remember to practice your new vocabulary, go chat with some people, and we'll see you next time.